The sky burned amber as twilight descended upon Meridian settlement. Harsh winds carried the acrid scent of scorched metal and chemicals across the barren landscape of Frontier. The settlement itself, a haphazard collection of repurposed shipping containers and abandoned spacecraft, stood as humanity's tenuous foothold on this unforgiving planet, where humans and alien species coexisted in uneasy tolerance. Mark Alden wiped grease-stained hands on his worn coveralls as he finished the day's repairs in his workshop. A tall, muscular man with perpetually oil-smudged fingers and a face weathered by Frontier's harsh climate. Mark had built a modest reputation as the settlement's most reliable mechanic. His workshop, converted from an old shipping container, doubled as his living quarters, cramped but functional, filled with salvage parts and tools accumulated over years of scavenging. The emergency alert pierced the evening quiet, its wailing siren, a harbinger of disaster. Mark stepped outside, squinting toward the settlement's perimeter, where an ominous plume of smoke rose against the darkening sky. Without hesitation, he locked his workshop and sprinted toward the commotion, joining the growing crowd of settlers converging on the crash site. A spacecraft, or what remained of one, lay shattered across the eastern ridge. Twisted metal fragments had carved deep gouges into Frontier's rusty soil. Emergency personnel, a mix of humans and Meridians, the scaled native species, had already established a perimeter around the wreckage. "All life signs negative," announced Drex, the tall, lanky Meridian emergency coordinator, scales gleaming under the emergency lights. "Scan complete. No survivors detected." Mark pushed forward, studying the ship's remnants. Something about the scan results didn't sit right with him. The craft's design was distinctly Carrion, an elegant, streamlined vessel, typical of the Solarian subspecies, known for their meticulous engineering. The front cabin appeared crushed beyond recognition, the navigation module a mangled mess of components. "Wait," Mark called out, moving closer despite Drex's warning gesture. "That's a Carrion vessel. Their life signatures run differently than standard humanoids. Has anyone done a manual check?" Drex's facial scales flattened in irritation. "Protocol states we follow sensor readings. Scans show no viable life forms." But Mark had already started climbing over the debris, his mechanic's instinct driving him forward. The cockpit module was barely recognizable, crushed into a space barely large enough for a body. Yet, through a twisted opening, he glimpsed movement, subtle, almost imperceptible. "There's someone alive in here!" he shouted, wedging himself through the narrow gap, ignoring the sharp metal edges that tore at his clothing. What he found inside stopped his breath. A Carrion female pilot, her orange-hued skin dulled by dust and blood, lay pinned beneath the console. Her silver hair was matted with blood, and her violet eyes flickered weakly. But most horrifying was her condition. All 4 limbs had been severed in the crash, leaving her torso barely intact. Mark's stomach lurched, but years of emergency training overrode his nausea. He pressed fingers to her neck, finding the faint, rapid flutter of a Carrion pulse. "I need a medic here now," he bellowed, carefully stabilizing her head. "Female Carrion pilot. Multiple amputations, still alive." Drex appeared at the opening, his expression shifting from annoyance to shock. "Impossible. No Carrion survives the loss of multiple limbs." "Well, this one's still breathing," Mark snapped. "Get me a stretcher and trauma kit." "You don't understand," Drex said, his voice dropping. "Carrions consider the loss of limbs catastrophic. Their culture mandates ritual release for such cases. She wouldn't want to be saved." Mark's anger flared. "She hasn't been given the choice. I'm not letting her die while we debate cultural protocols." The violet eyes suddenly opened fully, focusing on Mark with startling clarity. "Why?" The Carrion's voice was barely audible, a raspy whisper. "Why save me?" Mark met her gaze without hesitation. "Because I can." In that moment, something passed between them, A silent understanding. A pact. Mark turned back to Drex, who stood paralyzed by indecision. I'm taking her to my workshop. It has basic medical equipment. Either help me or get out of my way. This will cause diplomatic complications, Drex warned. The Solarian embassy will demand jurisdiction over their citizen. Let them come to my door then, Mark replied, carefully lifting the Carrion's torso. Despite the gruesome injuries, there was surprisingly little blood. Carrion physiology included natural coagulants that prevented immediate exsanguination. Right now, she needs immediate care. With reluctant assistance from 2 human emergency workers, Mark transported the injured Carrion to his workshop. Her consciousness faded in and out during the journey, but her eyes remained fixed on Mark whenever they opened. The workshop transformed into an improvised medical facility. Mark activated his homemade medical monitoring system, salvaged from a decommissioned medical transport, and connected a synthetic plasma drip compatible with Carrion biology. As he worked, he accessed holographic anatomy charts of Solarian physiology, studying the neural pathways and circulatory systems. Hours passed as Mark cleaned wounds, applied regenerative compounds, and stabilized the traumatized nervous system. The Carrion drifted in and out of consciousness, each time studying Mark with those penetrating violet eyes. By dawn, her condition had stabilized. Mark, exhausted but vigilant, was adjusting the nutrient mix when she fully regained consciousness. I'm Mark Alden, he said, noticing her alertness. You're in my workshop at Meridian Settlement. Your ship crashed yesterday evening. Nali, she replied weakly. Nali Novan, though most call me Nali. Her gaze drifted to where her left arm should have been, now ending in a carefully bandaged stump. My people will not accept this. I am useless now. Mark shook his head. Not where I come from, and not here on Frontier either. You don't understand Carrion ways, she said, pain evident in her voice. A body so damaged is considered beyond salvation. The ritual release would have been merciful. Well, we're not on a Carrion world, Mark replied firmly. On Frontier, life matters more than custom. Nali turned away, conflict evident in her expression. Why save what cannot be restored? Mark was silent for a moment, then moved to a workbench where components lay scattered. Who says you can't be restored? He held up a skeletal framework, the beginning of a prosthetic arm. I'm a mechanic. I fix things that are broken. Nali's eyes widened. Mechanical limbs? Carrions have never... Then you'll be the first, Mark interrupted. I've studied your neural pathways. With the right interface, you could have functionality again. It would be an abomination to my people, she whispered. But would it be an abomination to you? Mark asked quietly. Before she could answer, a sharp knock came at the workshop door. Mark opened it to find Drex accompanied by 2 Settlement Council security officers. Mark Alden, you're summoned to appear before the Settlement Council, Drex announced formally. Charges include operating an unlicensed medical facility and interfering with Solarian cultural practices. I saved a life, Mark responded, standing his ground. You're violating diplomatic agreements with the Solarian embassy, Drex countered. Ambassador Tovan has formally requested the return of the Carrion citizen for proper ritual proceedings. She has a name, Mark said coldly. Nali Novan, and she hasn't asked to be released. The council meeting is tomorrow at midday, Drex said, ignoring Mark's retort. Bring your patient, if she's able. His eyes flicked toward the interior of the workshop, where Nali lay, watching the exchange. The ambassador will be present. After they departed, Mark returned to Nali's side. I won't let them take you if you don't want to go. Nali studied him, conflict evident in her expression. Why risk yourself for me? You don't even know me. Mark continued working on the prosthetic framework as he answered. I know enough. I know you want to live, or you wouldn't have held on through the crash. I know you're intelligent and strong-willed. The rest, we'll figure out together." Over the next days, Mark worked tirelessly, dividing his time between caring for Nolly and developing the prosthetic limbs. He scoured the settlement for materials: titanium carbon composite for the framework, advanced pressure sensors for tactile feedback, neural interface components salvaged from medical waste. On the third day, Nolly awoke to find a basic prosthetic arm attached to her left shoulder socket, a metallic framework with delicate neural connectors exposed. Mark guided her through the initial neural calibration, watching carefully as she attempted to flex non-existent fingers. "It's strange," she murmured, wincing at the electric sensation. "Different from pain, but extraordinary. I still exist." "This is just the beginning," Mark promised. "Each day will improve the integration. Eventually, you'll have sensation close to your original limbs." "Why not let me die?" Nolly asked suddenly. "A damaged carrion is considered a burden to all. Why save me when my own people would not?" Mark's hand stilled on the calibration tool. "Because I believe life matters above all else. I'm a mechanic. I fix things that are broken. That's what I know." 2 weeks passed in a blur of progress and setbacks. Mark completed a fully functional right arm, built from organic reinforced plastics with embedded tactile sensors. The metallic gray surface with orange highlights complemented Nolly's natural skin tone. The activation moment was tense. Nolly trembled as the neural interface connected, electrical impulses translating into sensation. She carefully raised the prosthetic hand, examining its articulation before hesitantly reaching toward Mark's face. "I can feel your warmth," she whispered, fingertips barely brushing his cheek. The moment hung between them, intimate and charged. Mark felt heat rise to his face and tried to disguise his reaction with humor. "Looks like the sensory system is working perfectly." Nolly withdrew her hand, but her eyes remained fixed on his. "My society would rather see me dead than live like this." Her voice was soft but steady. "They would say these limbs make me less than carrion." "I'm not carrion," Mark replied simply. "I only know that every life has value." The moment planted seeds of something deeper, a connection transcending species and physical boundaries. News of the metal-limbed alien girl spread through Meridian Settlement. The Settlement Council called an emergency hearing, with Drex providing formal accusations, unauthorized medical procedures, and diplomatic risk. The Solarian ambassador, Tovan, filed a formal request for Nolly's return for ritual release. The council chamber, converted from an old carrion shuttle, hummed with tension as Mark entered, followed by Nolly on a hover platform. Her presence caused an immediate stir. Many had expected a decrepit invalid, not the composed figure who navigated the platform with quiet dignity. "The council recognizes Mark Alden and the carrion citizen Nolly Novan," announced the council head, a gray-scaled Meridian elder. Ambassador Tovan rose immediately, his silver-orange complexion darkening with emotion. "This proceeding is unnecessary. Under galactic convention, carrion citizens remain under Solarian jurisdiction. The ritual release is our sacred right." Nolly's voice cut through the chamber. "I choose life over death. No one has the right to decide for me." She raised her prosthetic arms, the movement deliberate and controlled. "These limbs give me back what was lost. I reject the ritual release." The council erupted into murmurs. Mark noticed division among the members, some nodding in agreement with Nolly, others shifting uncomfortably at the cultural confrontation. After hours of testimony and legal arguments, the council reached a temporary compromise. Mark would register his workshop as a humanitarian medical research facility, and Nolly would be granted temporary residence pending final judgment. Ambassador Tovan left the chamber with barely contained fury, promising further diplomatic action. 2 months passed, during which Mark completed prosthetic legs for Nolly, allowing her to walk again. Their relationship deepened through long nights of calibration and therapy sessions. Mark taught Nolly about Earth cultures and mechanical engineering. She shared Carrion poetry and navigation techniques. Their conversations often continued until dawn, transcending professional boundaries. The mining accident east of Meridian Settlement changed everything. A tunnel collapse trapped dozens of miners, many with severe crushing injuries. Mark and Nolly rushed to the site, establishing a field clinic. Together, they saved 3 miners from amputations using emergency prosthetics and restored mobility to 5 others who would have been permanently disabled. Their work drew attention, both positive and negative. Ambassador Tovan intensified diplomatic pressure, while the Valuri, alien merchants known for aggressive business practices, quietly approached Vex Industries with offers to purchase the prosthetic technology. Late one night, as Mark and Nolly worked on improving neural response times, they heard the workshop lock being tampered with. 2 armed mercenaries, hired by Vex, forced their way inside, demanding the prosthetic technology research. "Stand back from the consoles," ordered the first mercenary, weapon trained on Mark. Vex Industries claims salvage rights to all technology developed in unlicensed facilities. Mark positioned himself between the intruders and Nolly. "This isn't salvage. It's medical research, and it's not for sale." The second mercenary moved toward the neural interface equipment. "We're authorized to use necessary force. The girl is just a test subject. Damaged goods." Nolly's voice came from behind Mark, unnaturally calm. "Mark, step aside." When he hesitated, she repeated more firmly, "Trust me. Step aside." As Mark moved, Nolly raised her prosthetic arms, which began emitting an orange glow. Before anyone could react, an electromagnetic pulse discharged from her limbs, disabling the mercenaries' weapons and communication devices. The unexpected defensive capability, a side effect of the neural integration that neither had anticipated, left everyone momentarily stunned. Taking advantage of the confusion, Mark tackled the nearest mercenary, while Nolly disabled the second with another targeted pulse. The workshop shook with the struggle, equipment crashing to the floor. Vex himself, a cold-eyed Valuri businessman, stepped through the doorway, holding a signal disruptor. "Hand over your research, or I'll turn your friend into dust." Nolly showed no fear. "Mark, get back!" she commanded, then focused her concentration. The orange glow intensified around her prosthetics, generating an electromagnetic field strong enough to destroy Vex's device. Her entire frame illuminated, revealing the perfect integration between body and machine. Meridian security forces, alerted by the workshop's security system, arrived to arrest Vex and his mercenaries. Nolly's unexpected ability to generate and control electromagnetic fields hadn't just saved them. It had revealed a new dimension of neural prosthetic integration that neither had anticipated. The incident accelerated the final hearing before the settlement council. The chamber was packed when Nolly, Mark, and Ambassador Tovan were called to present their cases. After months of work with multiple patients, their evidence was compelling. Nolly addressed the council with controlled emotion. "I never wished for death. I wanted to live and contribute. Our patients, the miners, the disabled children, those injured in accidents, prove this technology saves lives and restores dignity." Mark followed with a technical presentation, explaining how the prosthetics worked and the unexpected neural adaptations they'd observed. Perfection isn't about preserving an unaltered body, but about transcending limitations. If we limit our concept of human value to physical form, many lives will be needlessly lost. Ambassador Tovan began a rebuttal, citing centuries of Carrion tradition, when the chamber doors opened unexpectedly. A representative from the Galactic Medical Coalition entered, silencing the proceedings with her presence. "The Coalition has been monitoring these developments," she announced. "We are prepared to offer Mark Alden and Nolly Novan positions at our Advanced Medical Center on Nexus Station. Furthermore, We recognize Nali's status as a neural integrated carrion, a new dual entity protected under Article 47 of the Galactic Charter. Ambassador Tovan's expression soured, but political reality forced his concession. While I maintain that carrion traditions have merit, perhaps we must reconsider our approach in light of these developments. The final judgment came swiftly. Mark and Nali would depart for Nexus Station with full research support, while their prosthetic technology would be made available for humanitarian use throughout Frontier. On their last evening in the workshop, Mark and Nali packed their few possessions. The space, once just a mechanic's shop, had become the birthplace of a medical revolution. "I never imagined this outcome when I pulled you from that wreckage," Mark admitted, securing the neural interface schematics. Nali's prosthetic fingers intertwined with his. "You saw value where others saw only loss. You taught me that adaptation isn't surrender, it's evolution." As dawn broke over Meridian Settlement, they stood together watching the transport vessel that would carry them to Nexus Station. The rising sun cast their shadows long across the rusty soil. One human, one carrion, their silhouettes merging into something new. "We've started a revolution," Mark whispered. Nali nodded, squeezing his hand. "We'll build a future for every being who needs to change to survive." The transport doors opened, beckoning them toward new horizons. Behind them, Meridian Settlement continued its daily rhythms. But something fundamental had shifted. Already, injured Solarians were quietly seeking treatment, while other species looked toward prosthetic integration, not as last resort, but as evolution. Mark and Nali stepped forward together, pioneers of a medical frontier where biology and technology merged to create something greater than either alone could achieve. A future where no life was considered expendable, where adaptation meant not just survival, but transcendence. The amber sky of Frontier gave way to the stars beyond as their transport lifted off, carrying not just two individuals, but the promise of a new understanding of life itself. One where difference wasn't weakness, but strength. Where brokenness wasn't the end, but merely a transition. And where compassion transcended the boundaries of species, culture, and form. As the settlement receded beneath them, Nali leaned against Mark's shoulder. "In carrion poetry, there's a saying, 'The stars shine brightest for those who have known darkness.'" Mark smiled, watching the planet fall away. "Then we're in for quite a light show." The transport accelerated toward the stars, leaving Frontier behind but carrying its lessons forward, a testament to the power of one decision. One moment of defiance against tradition. One choice to value life above all else. In the medical bay of the transport, a holographic display showed their first patients at Nexus Station. A young Meridian with a congenital limb deformity, a human pilot with spinal damage, and, most significantly, a carrion diplomat who had lost an arm in a recent accident, sent in secret by Ambassador Tovan himself. "It seems even the most rigid traditions can bend when faced with compassion," Nali observed. Mark nodded, studying the cases. "We didn't just save lives, we changed minds." "And that," Nali said, her violet eyes reflecting the starlight, "is the greatest healing of all." The transport hummed as it accelerated toward Nexus Station, carrying with it the seeds of a medical revolution, and two pioneers whose journey had only just begun. Meridian Settlement faded into memory as Mark and Nali established their research center on Nexus Station. The gleaming medical facility, with its state-of-the-art laboratories and recovery wards, bore little resemblance to the cramped workshop where their journey had begun. Yet, they kept a piece of that workshop, the original neural interface prototype, displayed prominently in the center's atrium, a reminder of humble beginnings and the power of improvisation. Word spread throughout the galaxy. Patients from dozens of species sought their expertise, not just those with traumatic injuries, but individuals born with congenital conditions, veterans with combat wounds, and even enhancement seekers, looking to transcend biological limitations. "We've come a long way from that crash site," Mark observed one evening, watching a young Meridian child test her new prosthetic arm in the rehabilitation garden. Nolly, now the center's neural integration director, nodded. "Remember when you told me you were just a mechanic who fixed broken things?" "I still am," Mark replied, smiling. "The parts are just more complicated now." Their greatest triumph came 6 months after establishing the center. A carrion transport pilot arrived, severely injured after an asteroid field collision. Ambassador Tovan himself accompanied the patient, his nephew, requesting treatment rather than ritual release. "Traditions evolve," the ambassador acknowledged stiffly. "Even the oldest cultures must sometimes reconsider their certainties." As Nolly guided the young carrion through his first steps with prosthetic legs, she caught Mark watching from the doorway, pride evident in his expression. "You were right," she told him later, as they walked the station's observation deck. The galaxy spread before them in all its infinite possibility. "Every life has value, even those our cultures would discard." Mark took her hand, flesh intertwined with advanced prosthetics, human with carrion, past with future. "That's the thing about the universe," he said. "It doesn't waste anything. Not ships, not parts, and not people," Nolly finished, leaning against him as they gazed out at the stars, no longer separated by species or form, but united in the most essential way, by the belief that compassion could transcend any boundary, and that every broken thing deserved the chance to be remade. In the depths of space, far from Earth and carrion alike, they had found not just purpose, but home, in their work, in their patience, and in each other. And as the galaxy continued its eternal dance, they added their own melody to its symphony, the quiet revolution of second chances, the persistent defiance of limitation, and the enduring power of one simple choice, to save a life that others would have abandoned. For in that choice lay the seeds of all that followed, proof that even in the coldest reaches of space, compassion could take root and flourish, changing not just individuals, but worlds. And it had all begun with a crash, a damaged alien girl, and a human mechanic who refused to accept the finality of brokenness, who saw, instead, the possibility of something new.